The night shimmered with chandeliers, silk gowns, and the expensive laughter of people who had never worked a day in their lives. The ballroom of the Halden estate gleamed like a palace, gold-trimmed pillars, marble floors polished to a mirror shine, and tables decorated with crystal and orchids. Guests moved like they were floating, sipping champagne that cost more than most people's monthly salary. At the center of it all stood Lena Halden, the billionaire's wife. She wore a crimson evening gown that fit her like flame, and diamonds that glittered with every breath she took. People didn't just notice her, they circled her, admired her, feared her. She had a reputation carved in ice, stunning, proud, and merciless when crossed. But tonight, something else stirred beneath her calm exterior. Because this wasn't just another charity gala. This was her husband's anniversary celebration, the anniversary of a legacy, a fortune, and a kingdom he built long before she entered his life. Lena felt the pressure of every gaze, every whispered comparison between her and the late Mrs. Halden, a woman people still described as perfect. Lena lifted her chin, maintaining her practiced smile. She hated crowds. She hated judgment more. Just then, the double doors at the front of the ballroom opened. Heads turned. Conversations broke off. Someone gasped softly. He walked in, tall, confident, dressed in a sleek black suit tailored to perfection. His presence commanded the room without effort, as though gravity itself shifted to acknowledge him. His skin was deep, warm brown, smooth under the soft lighting. His expression calm but unreadable. Elijah Ward, CEO of Ward Dynamics, a man whispered about in business circles as the one who could topple giants and build empires overnight, a man who turned nothing into everything, a man people said would surpass every billionaire in that room within 5 years. Lena had seen him in magazines, headlines, television interviews, but seeing him here at her husband's event ignited something sharp in her chest. Malcolm Halden, her husband, greeted Elijah with a wide grin, shaking his hand firmly. "Glad you could make it," Malcolm boomed. Elijah smiled slightly, polite, reserved. "Wouldn't miss it. I respect what you've built." Guests murmured admiration. Some looked starstruck. Others looked threatened. Lena watched from across the room, feeling an unfamiliar mixture of curiosity and unease. Elijah carried himself with a kind of quiet power different from the arrogant entitlement she often saw in these circles. He didn't need to brag. He didn't need to flaunt. His confidence was carved deeper than wealth. It was in his eyes, his posture, the stillness of a man who had survived storms these people couldn't imagine. Malcolm waved Lena over. "Sweetheart, meet Elijah Ward." Lena stepped forward, graceful but cautious. Elijah extended his hand. She placed hers in his, expecting a firm, businesslike shake. Instead, it was gentle yet steady, disarming. "A pleasure," Elijah said. "Likewise," she replied, though her voice came out softer than intended. His eyes lifted slightly, observing her the way a man reads a book he finds unexpectedly intriguing. But before she could process the feeling, the room erupted into clinking glasses as the orchestra began playing louder. Malcolm excused himself to speak to his investors, leaving Lena and Elijah near the center of the ballroom, two figures in a sea of pretense. A waiter passed by with trays of wine. Lena grabbed a glass, needing something to ground herself. "You look like you'd rather be anywhere else," Elijah said quietly. Lena blinked. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to someone who understands what pretending feels like." She exhaled a fragile laugh. "And what are you pretending tonight, Mr. Ward?" "That I enjoy parties full of people waiting to judge my every move." His honesty startled her. In a place where people hid behind masks, he wore none. A small part of her chest unclenched. But before the moment could settle, a group of elegantly dressed women approached Lena's circle of acquaintances, though not quite friends. "Lena, darling," cooed Marissa, her voice dripping with sugar-coated venom. "Aren't you going to introduce us to your guest?" Elijah's jaw tightened subtly, barely noticeable unless someone looked closely. "This is Elijah Ward," Lena said. "CEO of O. We know who he is," Marissa interrupted. "The media can't stop talking about him." Another woman leaned in, fake smile gleaming. "Self-made, right? That must have been quite a climb." The implication hung in the air. Elijah understood it. Lena heard it. Both chose silence, but Marissa didn't stop. "Do you feel out of place at events like these?" she asked, too sweetly. Different background and all. Lena's stomach twisted. Her grip on her wineglass tightened. but Elijah smiled politely. Not at all. When you've been underestimated your whole life, walking into a room like this feels like winning. Marissa's smile faltered. Elijah's tone stayed steady, gracious, unshaken. He didn't meet cruelty with cruelty. He didn't need to. Lena felt her chest warm with admiration and shame. These were her peers, yet he handled them with more grace than she ever had. "Excuse me," Lena said abruptly. "We need a moment." She grabbed Elijah's arm and pulled him aside, away from the murmuring women. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "They're awful." Elijah shrugged gently. "They're predictable." For a moment, Lena forgot the noise of the ballroom. She forgot the lights, the music, the stares. She only saw him come, grounded, impossibly composed. And maybe that scared her, because he saw through everything, including her. The orchestra shifted to a louder melody, and the dance floor filled. Malcolm was still talking to business associates, absorbed in his empire. Lena felt a blunt ache in her chest, loneliness disguised as elegance. Elijah noticed. "Are you all right?" he asked. She nodded, but the lie trembled. "I'm used to being decorative. You don't strike me as someone who likes being put on display." "I don't," she whispered. Her fingers trembled slightly around her glass. Elijah looked at her hands, then at her face. "You're holding too much in," he said quietly. She blinked fast, fighting the sting in her eyes. "You don't even know me." "I know the look of someone trapped in a life that doesn't feel like their own." Something inside her cracked, just a little. She took another drink, the wine bitter on her tongue. Then a voice behind her cut sharply through the air. "Lena," she turned. Malcolm approached, irritation in his posture. "Why are you over here?" "I was just," Malcolm interrupted, glancing at Elijah. His expression tightened. Something territorial flickered across his eyes. Lena sensed tension rising. To diffuse it, she stepped closer to Malcolm, but in her rush her elbow bumped the wineglass. Red wine splashed across Elijah's suit, deep crimson staining black fabric. The sound of gasps rippled across the nearby guests. Lena froze. "Oh my God, Elijah, I'm so sorry," but before she finished, Malcolm's voice sliced the air. "What is wrong with you?" he snapped. "You need to be more careful. Do you understand how embarrassing this is?" His words hit harder than the spill. Guests stared. Whispers grew. Lena felt heat climb her neck. Elijah looked down at the stain, then at Lena, eyes soft, not angry. He opened his mouth to calm her, but Malcolm bulldozed the moment. "And you?" Malcolm turned to Elijah. "Why were you standing so close to my wife?" Lena flinched. Elijah inhaled, slowly, controlled, contained. The party had become silent, the music fading into the background like an embarrassed witness. Malcolm raised his voice again, loud enough for half the ballroom. "Next time, keep your distance." His tone carried an ugly edge, an implication everyone heard. Lena's eyes widened. "Malcolm, stop." Elijah straightened, finally speaking. "Come, but raise a sharp." "Careful," he said softly. "You're close to saying something you'll regret." Malcolm scoffed. "Are you threatening me?" "No," Elijah replied. "I'm warning you, because your insecurity is showing." Gasps echoed. Someone dropped a fork. Malcolm stepped forward aggressively. "Don't you dare!" Elijah raised a hand, stopping him with quiet authority. "You're speaking to me as if I'm beneath you," he said. "But look around." People watched from all directions. "You're losing respect," Elijah continued. "Not because I'm here, but because you don't know how to treat the woman standing beside you." Lena felt her breath catch. Malcolm looked momentarily stunned, caught between pride and panic. Then Elijah turned to the crowd. His voice carried, not loud, but powerful enough to command stillness. "If a man cannot respect his wife in private, he will humiliate her in public," Elijah said. "And no wealth in this room can hide that." The room fell into absolute silence. Lena stared at him. The words hit something buried deep inside hers, something she had ignored for years. Malcolm sputtered, face red, trying to gather authority. "Security," but no one moved. Not guards, not staff, not guests. People simply watched, shocked, sympathetic. Lena's heart pounded, her hands shook. Elijah turned to her. "You deserve better than to be blamed for a mistake, humiliated for an accident, or silenced because of someone else's pride." The truth of it shattered her. Her throat tightened painfully. Malcolm grabbed her wrist. "We're leaving now." Elijah stepped forward instantly. His voice lowered but carried lethal calm. "Let go of her." Malcolm hesitated. His grip loosened. Not because he wanted to, but because Elijah's presence made it impossible not to. Lena pulled her hand away. breathing hard. She looked between them, her husband, furious and flailing, and Elijah, steady and protective. People whispered, she didn't do anything wrong. He overreacted. Elijah was right. Malcolm felt the shift, the room no longer on his side. He turned away, storming out of the ballroom. Lena stood frozen, trembling, fighting the urge to collapse. Elijah gently placed a hand near her arm, not touching, just offering stability. You're not alone, he said softly. Her eyes filled. The room felt too loud, too bright, too exposed. I don't know what to do, she whispered. Then start with this, Elijah said. Stop apologizing for things that aren't your fault. The dam inside her broke. Tears spilled silently. Elijah guided her toward a quieter corner of the ballroom where no one could stare. He handed her a napkin. She wiped her cheeks, shaking. I didn't mean for any of that to happen. I know, he replied. People will talk. They always do, he said. But tonight, they saw you. Really saw you. Her breathing steadied slowly. Elijah glanced toward the exit where Malcolm had vanished. You don't have to stay with someone who treats you like an accessory. Lena closed her eyes. It's complicated. His voice softened further. It's painful. That's what it is. The words hit her heart like truth she wished she could deny. She opened her eyes. Why did you defend me? Elijah took a breath, choosing his words carefully. Because the moment you apologized for spilling wine, he said, I saw a woman who has been apologizing her entire life. Her lips parted, breath unsteady. And because, Elijah added quietly, nobody deserves to be made small, just so someone else can feel big. A tear escaped again. She didn't wipe it. For once, she let herself feel. Across the ballroom, guests slowly returned to their conversations, but the atmosphere had shifted. People looked at Lena with new eyes, some with sympathy, others with guilt for the times they had judged her. Elijah remained beside her, quietly protective. She finally spoke, her voice fragile but honest. I don't know what comes next. You will, Elijah said. When you stop being afraid of choosing yourself. Her chest tightened, not with fear this time, but with clarity. The music resumed softly. Laughter rose again. The world continued, but she had changed. Something sharp inside her had dulled. Something strong had awakened. She wasn't sure where her life would go now. She wasn't sure what would become of her marriage. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. Tonight, a stranger saw her more clearly than her husband ever had. And for the first time in years, Lena felt something unfamiliar blooming in her chest. Not fear, not guilt, not loneliness. Possibility. She looked at Elijah, the man who had stepped into a battlefield. He didn't start, simply because it was the right thing to do. Thank you, she whispered. He nodded. Anytime. And as the night began to fade, Lena Halden realized her life was no longer trapped in the shadow of someone else's expectations. It had finally begun.